The starship Harmony's light drifted through the darkness of space, its silver hull reflecting the distant stars. Inside the bridge, Ambassador Tellith stood with his long fingers pressed against the viewing window. His blue skin seemed to glow softly in the dim light. He was excited. After 3 months of travel, they had finally reached the Sol system. "We are approaching the third planet," said the ship's pilot, a creature with 4 eyes and gray fur. "The signals are coming from there," Tellith smiled. This was his 7th first contact mission. Each time felt special. Each time, he got to welcome a new species into the Galactic Assembly. The Assembly was a group of 47 different alien races who lived together in peace. They shared knowledge, traded goods, and helped each other grow. "They must be so young," Tellith said, "just learning to reach beyond their world. How wonderful." Behind him, Commander Zax checked his weapons console. Zax was a Thun, a species that looked like walking reptiles with thick armor plating. He served as the military escort, though the Assembly rarely needed military protection. Most species they met were peaceful or too primitive to be dangerous. "I am reading something strange," Zax said, his deep voice rumbling. "There is a lot of debris in orbit around the planet." "Debris?" Tellith turned around. "Perhaps old satellites. They probably launched many as they learned." "Too much debris," Zax replied. "I'm reading thousands of objects. Wait, some of them are quite large." He tapped his screen several times. "These are not satellites. These look like weapons platforms." Tellith felt his first hint of worry. "Weapons in orbit? That seems excessive for a young species." Suddenly, every alarm on the ship began screaming. Red lights flashed across the bridge. The pilot grabbed the controls as the ship shook violently. "Multiple target locks," the pilot shouted. "We are being tracked by defense systems. Dozens of them." "What?" Tellith grabbed a handrail as the ship jerked to the side. "We sent peaceful greeting signals. A voice cut through their communication system. It was cold and flat without any emotion. It spoke in several languages at once, overlapping each other in a disturbing harmony. "Unknown vessel, you have entered restricted space. State your purpose immediately or you will be eliminated. You have 30 seconds to comply." Tellith's hands shook as he activated the communication panel. "This is Ambassador Tellith of the Galactic Assembly. We come in peace. We detected your radio signals and came to welcome you to the community of starfaring species." Silence. 20 seconds passed, then 15. Tellith could hear his own heart beating. 10 seconds, the cold voice said. "Please," Tellith cried out. "We mean no harm. We are explorers and diplomats." 5 seconds. Zax grabbed the weapons console. "Ambassador, I recommend we retreat immediately." "Comply immediately or be destroyed," the voice said. 3, 2, we are peaceful. Tellith screamed. "We surrender. We place ourselves at your mercy." The countdown stopped. More silence filled the bridge. Tellith could barely breathe. Then something impossible happened. The empty space around them began to shimmer and twist. One by one, shapes appeared out of nothing. Starships, massive warships painted in dark colors covered in weapons and armor plating. They had been invisible, hiding somehow. Tellith counted 10 ships. Then 20. Then 50. They kept appearing, surrounding the Harmony's light in a perfect sphere formation. Each ship was built for war. He could see missile pods, energy cannons, and strange devices he did not recognize. "By the stars," the pilot whispered. "There are over 200 of them." Commander Zax's scales had turned pale. "Ambassador, these are not the ships of a primitive species. These are military vessels of a spacefaring empire." "A powerful one," the cold voice spoke again. "You will power down all systems except life support. You will allow a boarding party to inspect your vessel. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. Acknowledge." Tellith nodded weakly. We acknowledge." "We will comply." A small ship detached from the nearest warship and approached them. It locked onto their airlock with a loud clang that echoed through the hull. Tellith and his crew waited in the docking bay, their hands raised in the universal gesture of peace. The airlock door hissed open. 6 figures stepped through, wearing heavy armor that covered them completely. They carried weapons that hummed with power. Behind their helmets, Tellith could see their faces. They looked similar to several species in the assembly, but with distinct features. Hair on their heads, forward-facing eyes, skin in various shades of brown and pink. They were human. The leader removed her helmet. She was a woman with dark skin, short black hair, and eyes that had seen too much. Her face was hard and showed no emotion. A scar ran from her left eye down to her jaw. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Forces," she said. Her voice was much warmer than the computer voice, but still carried authority. "You will come with us to the surface. Your ship will be held here until we determine you are not a threat." "A threat?" Tellith found his voice again. "Captain Chen, we are not a threat to anyone. We came to welcome you. How do you have such powerful ships? Your radio signal suggested you were just beginning space exploration." Captain Chen's expression did not change. "Those signals are 70 years old. You traveled a long way to get here. We have been in space for some time now." She gestured to her soldiers. "This way. General Reeves wants to meet you." As they were escorted through the human ship, Tellith looked at everything with growing confusion. The walls were covered in armor plating. Every corridor had defensive positions. The crew members they passed all looked tired, like soldiers who had been fighting for years. Some had scars. Others had mechanical limbs replacing lost ones. This was not the ship of explorers. This was not the vessel of a peaceful species reaching for the stars. This was a warship designed by people who understood war very well. Through a window, Tellith caught a glimpse of Earth below. It was a beautiful blue and green planet covered in swirling white clouds, but in orbit around that beautiful world, he could see the evidence of countless battles. Debris fields stretched for thousands of kilometers. Some pieces of wreckage were clearly military vessels, destroyed in combat. "Captain Chen," Tellith said quietly, "what happened here? Who did you fight?" Captain Chen glanced at him. For just a moment, something like sadness crossed her face. Then it was gone, replaced by that hard expression. "Each other," she said simply. "We fought each other." Tellith felt cold despite the comfortable temperature. A species that had fought itself in space. A species that had built these terrible weapons and turned them on their own kind. And somehow they had survived. What kind of people had the assembly just discovered? The transport ship carrying them descended toward Earth, passing through the debris field. Tellith looked at the wreckage of hundreds of destroyed vessels and felt a fear he had never experienced before. No aliens had come to join the assembly. Something else had been found, something much more dangerous. The transport landed in Geneva, a city built into the side of a mountain with gleaming towers reaching toward the sky. Captain Chen led Tellith and his crew through security checkpoints where armed guards watched them carefully. Everything was designed for defense. Even the beautiful gardens had reinforced walls and weapon emplacements hidden among the flowers. They entered a massive building made of steel and glass. Inside, they were taken to a museum. But this was not a museum of art or culture. It was a museum of war. General Marcus Reeves waited for them at the entrance. He was an older human with gray hair and a face lined with deep wrinkles. He wore a military uniform covered in medals and ribbons. His right hand was mechanical, replaced from the wrist down with advanced robotics. "Ambassador Tellith," he said, extending his mechanical hand. "Welcome to Earth. I apologize for the aggressive reception, but we have learned to be cautious." Tellith shook the offered hand carefully. "General, I do not understand. Your species has achieved remarkable technological advancement, but why is everything focused on military applications?" General Reeves smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "Let me show you something. Follow me." He led them into the first room of the museum. On the walls were displays showing primitive humans with stone tools. But these were not tools for farming or building. They were weapons. Spears, axes, clubs, all designed to kill. "This is where we began," General Reeves said. 50,000 years ago, we learned to make tools. And the first thing we did was use them to fight each other over hunting grounds and water sources." They moved to the next room. Bronze swords. Iron spears, crossbows, cannons, each invention was more deadly than the last. "We fought for land. We fought for resources. We fought for gods and kings and ideas," the general continued. "Every generation found new reasons to kill and better ways to do it." Commander Zack studied a display showing ancient battles. "But surely as you advanced you became more peaceful." General Reeves laughed bitterly. "More peaceful? No, Commander. We became more efficient." The next room showed horror after horror, pictures of cities destroyed by bombs, videos of soldiers dying in trenches, the nuclear weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. The general explained each war, each conflict, and the death toll kept rising. 20 million dead in one war, 60 million in another. Then the displays showed more recent conflicts. The climate wars where nations fought over water and food. The resource wars where corporations and countries battled for the last oil and rare metals. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times, General Reeves said. His voice was quiet now. We came very close to making our planet uninhabitable. They reached a room that made Telleth feel sick. It showed the orbital wars. Humans had reached space not to explore but to gain military advantage over each other. Nations built weapons platforms in orbit. They dropped tungsten rods from space that hit with the force of nuclear bombs. They fought battles between the Earth and Moon. 3 billion people died in the orbital wars, Captain Chen said. She had been quiet until now. My parents died in the siege of Beijing. My brother died defending the Mars colonies. I almost died 6 times. Telleth looked at her. How did you survive? How did your species survive? General Reeves activated a large screen. It showed Earth from space, covered in the lights of cities. We survived because we finally understood something. We could either destroy ourselves completely or we could unite. Not through peace and love, Ambassador. Through fear. The screen showed weapons. Massive weapons capable of destroying entire continents. Every nation on Earth has access to doomsday weapons, the general explained. If anyone attacks, everyone dies. We call it mutually assured destruction. We have peace now because the cost of war became too high. We stopped fighting each other because we finally built weapons so terrible that using them would mean our extinction. Commander Zax's voice was hollow. You achieved peace through the threat of total annihilation? Yes, General Reeves said simply. It is not a good system. It is not a noble system, but it works. We have not had a major war in 43 years. Telleth felt overwhelmed. In the Galactic Assembly, species achieved peace through understanding and cooperation. They talked through their differences. They compromised. This human approach was completely backward, but it had worked. They moved to the final room. It showed humanity's current military, the warships they had seen, weapons that could destroy planets, soldiers trained from childhood in combat tactics. The Earth Defense Forces numbered in the hundreds of millions. Why maintain such military strength if you have peace? Telleth asked. General Reeves looked at him with those tired eyes. Because we know what happens when you are not ready. We know what it means to be caught unprepared. We will never be victims again. Captain Chen stepped forward. Ambassador, you come from a peaceful civilization. That is wonderful. But you have never met a species like the Creeth, have you? The who? Telleth asked. We intercepted your transmissions before you arrived, Chen explained. We know about the Galactic Assembly. 47 peaceful species working together, but we also picked up other signals. Distress calls. Warnings about an expanding empire called the Creeth. They are conquering assembly worlds and you cannot stop them. Telleth felt his skin go cold. The Creeth invasion was classified information. How had humans learned about it so quickly? You hacked our communications? Commander Zax said, angry for the first time. Of course we did, General Reeves replied. That is what you do when an unknown force appears in your space. You gather intelligence. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the building. A young officer ran into the room and saluted the general. Sir, we have received an emergency transmission from the assembly. The Creeth have launched a major offensive. Multiple worlds are under attack. The assembly fleet is being destroyed. They are requesting immediate military assistance from any available forces. The room fell silent. Telleth felt his heart sink. He had known the Creeth were dangerous, but a major offensive? How many would die? General Reeves looked at the message on his datapad. He studied the tactical data with practiced eyes. Then he looked at Telleth. How many species in your assembly have real military experience? He asked. We have defense forces, Telleth said weakly. We patrol our borders. We maintain order. That is not what I asked. How many of you have fought a real war? How many of your soldiers have killed and seen their friends die? How many of your commanders understand tactics and strategy beyond theory? Telleth could not answer. The assembly had enjoyed peace for over 200 years. Their security forces were more like police. They had never faced a true military threat. That is what I thought, General Reeves said. He turned to Captain Chen. Send the message to command. The assembly is being invaded by a hostile force. They are not prepared to defend themselves. Should we offer assistance, sir? Chen asked. The general was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Telleth, then at the displays showing humanity's bloody history. Finally, he spoke. Assemble the council. We need to decide if humanity is ready to fight someone else's war. After everything we have done to each other, after all the death and suffering, Are we ready to bring that horror to the stars? Tellith found himself in a strange position. Hours ago, he had come to welcome a primitive species to the assembly. Now he was hoping that these violent, scarred, dangerous humans would agree to help, because his peaceful civilization was dying, and they had no idea how to save themselves. The United Earth Council chamber was a massive circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from every nation and major settlement gathered here to make decisions for all of humanity. Today, the room was full and tense. Tellith stood on the central platform with Commander Zax beside him. Around them, hundreds of human leaders argued loudly. Some wanted to help the assembly. Others wanted Earth to stay isolated. The debate had been going on for 3 hours. We barely survived our own wars, shouted a representative from the African Union. Why should we send our children to die in someone else's conflict? Because it is the right thing to do, responded a counselor from the Pacific Federation. We have the power to help. We have a moral obligation. A woman from the European coalition stood up. Moral obligation? Where was the galaxy when we were killing each other? Where was the assembly when 3 billion humans died in the orbital wars? They offer us membership now because they need our weapons, not our friendship. General Reeves sat in the military section, watching the debate with a tired expression. Captain Chen stood behind him, her hand resting on her sidearm. She had told Tellith that the council debates could become violent. He had not believed her until now. Please, Tellith said, his voice amplified across the chamber. You must understand, the Creeth do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners, they destroy everything. Entire species have been wiped out. If they are not stopped, they will continue until they reach Earth. Let them come, said a representative from the Mars colonies. We will be ready. We have defense systems that can protect us. Commander Zax stepped forward. No, you do not. I have seen your defenses. They are impressive against other humans. But the Creeth use technology you have never encountered. They have weapons that can burn through planetary shields. Their ships can fold space in ways that make targeting them nearly impossible. Then share your technology with us, suggested a counselor. Give us the tools to defend ourselves, and we will not need to fight your war. We will share everything, Tellith promised. Our star charts, our manufacturing techniques, our medical advances. The assembly has knowledge gathered from 47 different civilizations. All of it will be yours. A holographic display activated above the central platform. It showed footage of a Creeth attack on an assembly colony world. The aliens watched as the Creeth ships appeared and immediately began bombardment. There was no warning, no demands, no communication. They simply destroyed everything. The chamber grew quiet as they watched cities burn. Millions of civilians tried to evacuate, but the Creeth ships hunted down the transport vessels and destroyed them too. When the planet's defense forces tried to fight back, they were eliminated in minutes. The entire attack lasted less than 2 hours. When it was over, the planet was silent and dead. 300 million people lived on that world, Tellith said quietly. Now there is nothing but ash. A young representative from the Indian Federation stood up. Her name was Priya Sharma, and she had survived the climate wars as a child. I have a question for Ambassador Tellith. Why did the assembly not prepare for this? You knew the Creeth existed. You must have known they were dangerous. Tellith felt shame wash over him. We believed that all intelligent species would eventually choose peace. We thought that if we showed the Creeth the benefits of cooperation, they would join us. We sent diplomatic missions. They killed every ambassador we sent. We offered them trade agreements. They took our gifts and then invaded the worlds we offered them. We did not want to believe that a species could be so ruthless. That was naive, Captain Chen said bluntly. You assumed everyone thought like you. That is how you get destroyed. We know that now, Commander Zax admitted. His voice was heavy with guilt. We were fools. We are paying for that foolishness with millions of lives. General Reeves finally stood up. The chamber fell silent. Everyone respected the general, even those who disagreed with him. He had fought in the last 3 major conflicts. He had lost his wife in the orbital wars. He had rebuilt Earth's military from the ashes. I have been thinking about this for hours, he said. I have been asking myself what the right choice is. Do we risk human lives for aliens we just met? Do we bring our weapons and our violence to the galaxy? After everything we have done to each other, do we have the right to judge others or claim any moral authority? He paused, looking around the chamber. I do not have easy answers, but I know this. We became monsters to each other. We built terrible weapons. We learned how to kill efficiently. We survived 1,000 wars by becoming very good at destroying things. The general's voice grew stronger. Maybe it is time we became monsters for someone else. Maybe all that pain and death can mean something if we use it to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The assembly made the mistake of believing in universal goodness. We made the mistake of not believing in anything except survival. Perhaps together we can find something better. The chamber erupted in discussion again. Tellith watched as the humans argued among themselves. They were so divided. How could they make a decision? Then Priya Sharma spoke again. I have a proposal. Let us send an advisory force. Not a full military deployment, but specialists who can train the assembly forces and assess the threat. If the Creeth prove to be as dangerous as described, we can vote on further action. If they are not, we lose nothing but time. Many representatives nodded at this. It was a compromise. Humans seem to love compromises. Before a vote could be called, every screen in the chamber switched to an emergency broadcast. A human patrol ship, the Indomitable, was sending a distress signal. The signal was being relayed through assembly communications networks. The screens showed Lieutenant Jackson Okonkwo, a young officer with wide eyes and blood running down his face. Behind him, his bridge was damaged and smoking. This is Lieutenant Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Patrol Ship Indomitable. We responded to a distress call from an assembly refugee convoy under Creeth attack. We are currently engaging 12 Creeth warships. We are heavily outgunned and taking critical damage, but the refugees are evacuating. Just need to buy them a few more minutes. The transmission showed the outside view. The Indomitable was a small patrol vessel, not designed for combat against warships. It was firing everything it had at the Creeth ships, which surrounded it like predators circling prey. The human ship's shields were failing. Hull breaches appeared across its surface. Why does he not retreat? Tellith whispered. He cannot win. Captain Chen's expression was complicated, mixing pride and sadness. Because the refugees would die if he left, so he will not leave. They watched as the Indomitable took hit after hit. The ship's reactor started to overload. Lieutenant Okonkwo ordered his crew to abandon ship. Then he did something unexpected. He aimed his dying ship directly at the largest Creeth vessel and engaged the engines at full power. He is going to ram them, Commander Zax breathed. That is suicide. That is human, General Reeves corrected quietly. The Indomitable struck the Creeth dreadnought at full speed. The explosion was massive, destroying both ships and damaging 2 others. The remaining Creeth vessels broke off their attack. The refugee convoy escaped. The transmission cut to another feed. It showed escape pods from the Indomitable being picked up by assembly ships. Lieutenant Okonkwo had survived. So had most of his crew. The council chamber was completely silent now. Every representative stared at the screens. He did not wait for orders, one counselor said. He just acted. He saved thousands of lives, another added. Aliens he had never met. General Reeves turned to face the council. This is what we are. For better or worse. We see someone in danger and some of us cannot walk away, even when we should, even when it makes no sense. Lieutenant Okonkwo did not think about politics or strategy. He saw people about to die and he tried to save them. Priya Sharma stood up again. I call for a vote. All in favor of sending military advisors and support to the assembly. Say aye. Aye, came the response from most of the chamber. Not everyone, but enough. The motion passes, Priya announced. Earth will assist the Galactic Assembly against the Creeth threat. Tellith felt relief flood through him. Then he felt something else. Worry. These humans had just agreed to help. But what would they unleash on the galaxy? He had seen their history. He knew what they were capable of. The assembly had asked for help. Now help was coming. But he wondered if, years from now, the galaxy would regret inviting humanity to the stars. The Joint Human Assembly Task Force assembled at the border of Creth space, 3 weeks after the Council vote. 40 human warships formed up alongside 200 assembly vessels. The difference between them was obvious even to casual observers. The assembly ships were elegant and sleek, designed for efficiency and comfort. They had bright colors and smooth lines. They looked like ships built by civilizations that believed in beauty and art. The human ships were angular and brutal, covered in armor plating and weapons. They were painted in dark colors that made them hard to see against space. They looked like they had been built by people who understood that space was a battlefield. Captain Sarah Chen commanded the human contingent from her flagship, the Hammer of Terra. On her bridge, she watched as assembly officers tried to coordinate with her tactical team. It was not going well. But why would you target their life support systems? Asked a Valari commander through the communication channel. His name was Sarath, and he seemed genuinely confused. That would kill everyone on board. That is the point, Chen's tactical officer explained patiently. If we destroy their life support, they cannot fight. Dead enemies do not shoot back. But we could just disable their weapon systems, Sorath protested. That would neutralize them without killing anyone. Chen leaned forward. Commander Sorath, disabling their weapons takes time and precision. In battle, time equals casualties. Our casualties. I will not risk my crew's lives to be merciful to people trying to kill us. This is barbaric, Sorath said quietly. This is war, Chen replied. You asked us to teach you how to fight. This is how you fight. Now, are you ready for the operation? The target was Sarath 4, an assembly colony world currently under Creth occupation. The Creth had 40 warships in orbit and had begun landing ground forces. The assembly wanted to liberate the planet. Chen had other plans. The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Immediately, the Creth ships moved to intercept. The assembly vessels began their standard formation, preparing for a defensive battle. The human ships did something different. They split into 3 groups and accelerated at speeds that made the assembly captains nervous. They were heading straight toward the Creth fleet at a dangerous velocity. Captain Chen, what are you doing? Sorath called out. You will collide with them. No collision, Chen said calmly. Weapons free. Target the enemy command ships. Show these monsters what happens when they pick a fight with Earth. The human ships opened fire while still at extreme range. Their weapons were different from assembly technology. Kinetic rounds traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. Missiles that could adjust their course mid-flight. Energy beams that cut through shields like they were not there. The Creth had never fought humans before. They had fought the assembly for months and learned their tactics. The assembly ships would approach cautiously. Fire warning shots try to disable rather than destroy, and retreat if the battle turned against them. Humans did none of those things. The Hammer of Terra plowed through the Creth formation like it was made of paper. Chen's gunners targeted the bridge sections of enemy ships, killing the command crew immediately. Her missile pods launched dozens of warheads that locked onto Creth engines and detonated inside the propulsion systems. Her ship took hits, but the armor absorbed the damage and she kept advancing. Around her, other human captains employed similar tactics. They rammed damaged Creth ships using their own vessels as weapons. They fired into the engines of Creth vessels, causing reactor overloads that destroyed entire ships. They used electronic warfare systems that the assembly did not even know existed, frying Creth computer systems and leaving the enemy ships blind and helpless. They are retreating, Sorath announced, shock clear in his voice. The Creth are withdrawing. Chen checked her tactical display. The Creth had lost 12 ships in 15 minutes. The human fleet had taken damage, but no ships were destroyed. The Creth were indeed pulling back, something they had never done before against assembly forces. Do not let them escape, Chen ordered. Pursue and destroy. We need to send a message. Captain, they are defeated, Sorath protested. There is no need to continue killing them. Chen's voice turned hard. Commander, those ships will repair and return to kill more assembly citizens. Every Creth ship we let escape today is a ship that will destroy one of your colonies tomorrow. This is not a game. This is survival. Now, are you going to help us or should we do this alone? There was a long silence. Then Sorath spoke quietly.
We will assist.
May the stars forgive us. The combined fleet chased down the fleeing Kreeth ships. It was brutal and efficient. By the time the battle ended, 35 Kreeth vessels had been destroyed. Only 5 escaped. The human fleet had lost no ships, though several were heavily damaged. On the planet below, human Marines landed alongside assembly security forces. The fighting on the ground showed the same pattern. Assembly forces moved carefully, trying to minimize casualties and avoid civilian areas. Human forces used tactics that terrified the Kreeth. Teleth watched the ground battle from an observation ship in orbit. He saw human soldiers moving through buildings where Kreeth forces had taken hostages. The humans used gas that knocked out everyone in the building, then rushed in with masks to secure the area. They did not negotiate. They did not wait. They just acted. Is that not dangerous? He asked the human Marine commander coordinating the operation. The gas could harm the hostages. The gas will make them sleep, the commander replied. She was a woman named Rodriguez with scars across her neck. Sleep is better than being shot. We calculated the risk. This gives the hostages the best chance of survival. But you did not ask them, Teleth said. You did not give them a choice. Rodriguez looked at him with hard eyes. In hostage situations, you do not ask, you act. Every second we wait is another second the Kreeth could kill them. I will not let people die because I was too scared to make a hard choice. The operation was successful. Most of the hostages survived. But Teleth felt sick watching it. The humans were so cold, so calculating. They treated lives like numbers on a spreadsheet, weighing risks and benefits. Captain Chen found him later, standing alone in an observation deck. You look troubled, Ambassador, she said, joining him at the window. Your methods, Teleth said slowly. They work. You saved the colony. But the way you fight, it is so brutal. Yes, Chen agreed simply. Do you feel nothing? When you kill, when you make these terrible choices? Chen was quiet for a long moment. I feel everything, Ambassador. Every death weighs on me. Every order I give that results in casualties keeps me awake at night. I have nightmares about the people I have killed. Then why do it? Because someone has to, Chen replied. You want soldiers who feel nothing? Who kill without remorse? Those are monsters, and they are far more dangerous than soldiers who understand the weight of what they do. I know what I'm asking my crew to do. I know the cost, but I also know that if we do not do these terrible things, the Kreeth will do worse things to your people. Teleth looked out at the liberated planet below. Is there no other way? If you find one, let me know, Chen said. For now, this is what we have. You wanted us to teach you how to fight. This is how we fight. We strike first, we strike hard, and we do not stop until the enemy cannot hurt anyone ever again. Over the next 3 months, human assembly forces conducted 20 more operations. Each time the Kreeth lost, each time they lost more ships and more ground. The assembly officers were learning from the humans, but it was a painful education. Then the Kreeth deployed their ultimate weapon. It was a ship the size of a small moon, covered in weapon systems. The assembly had encountered it once before and barely survived. They called it the Planet Killer, and it was heading toward Thraxis Prime, the most populated assembly world. 4 billion people lived on Thraxis Prime. If the Planet Killer reached orbit, they would all die. General Reeves called an emergency meeting of all commanders. His face on the communication screen looked older than Teleth remembered. The Planet Killer will reach Thraxis Prime in 72 hours, he said. Assembly forces are evacuating civilians, but they cannot save everyone in time. We need to stop that weapon. How? Asked Commander Sorath. We have attacked it before. Our weapons barely scratch its armor. Then we do not attack it, Chen said. Everyone turned to look at her. We attacked the Kreeth homeworld instead. The room erupted in shock and protests. Attack the Kreeth homeworld? That was insane. It was too heavily defended. Chen stood up. General Reeves, permission to explain my proposal. Granted, Reeves said. The Kreeth are sending their Planet Killer toward Thraxis Prime because they think we have no choice but to defend that world, Chen explained. They expect us to throw everything we have at their superweapon, while they safely command from their homeworld. So we do the opposite. We let them think we are defending Thraxis Prime while our main fleet strikes at their home system. We show them what mutually assured destruction means. Teleth understood what she was saying, and it horrified him. You want to threaten their entire species? To hold their homeworld hostage? Yes, Chen said without hesitation. Because that is the only language they understand. You destroy one of ours, we destroy everything of yours. They will have to choose between Kompel. The planet killer moved through space like a dark moon, its weapons charging for the final attack on Thraxis Prime. On the planet below, billions of people watched the sky and prayed for salvation. Assembly ships positioned themselves to defend their world, knowing they could not win. Above the planet, Commander Sorath commanded the defense fleet. He had learned much from the humans over the past months, but this enemy was too large, too powerful. Still, he would try. That was what the humans had taught him. You fight even when you cannot win, because sometimes you buy enough time for something else to happen. All ships, prepare for engagement, he ordered. We hold this position until every civilian is evacuated or we are destroyed. There is no retreat. His crew looked nervous but determined. They had seen how humans fought. They had learned that sometimes courage meant accepting death to protect others. The planet killer's weapons began to glow with terrible energy. 10,000 light-years away, Captain Sarah Chen's strike force dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Kreeth home system. 20 human warships faced the defense fleet protecting the Kreeth homeworld. The Kreeth had 50 ships on patrol, confident in their superiority. Open a channel to the Kreeth command, Chen ordered. All frequencies. I want everyone to hear this. A Kreeth commander appeared on screen. The Kreeth looked like insects that had evolved to walk upright with hard shells and multiple eyes. This one's voice was harsh and clicking. Human vessel, you are foolish to come here. We will destroy you like we destroy all who oppose us. I am Captain Sarah Chen of Earth, she replied calmly. I am here to deliver a message. Your planet killer is currently targeting Thraxis Prime. If you fire that weapon, we will fire ours. Every human ship in this system is loaded with weapons capable of cracking your planet's crust. We will turn your homeworld into an asteroid field. The Kreeth commander seemed amused. You bluff. You do not have such weapons. Chen smiled without humor. Humans do not bluff about genocide. We know how to destroy worlds because we almost destroyed our own. Multiple times. Ask yourself, would a peaceful species make such a threat? We are not the assembly, we are humans. We do terrible things when necessary. You would kill billions of civilians? The Kreeth asked, for the first time sounding uncertain. Yes, Chen said simply. Just like you are about to do. The difference is we can follow through on our threat. Can you afford to find out if we are serious? You have 60 seconds to order your planet killer to stand down. After that, we begin bombardment. At Thraxis Prime, the planet killer's weapons reached full charge. Sorath closed his eyes, preparing for the end. Then something impossible happened. The massive ship stopped charging its weapons. What is happening? He asked his sensors officer. The planet killer is receiving urgent communications from Kreeth space, the officer reported. Multiple channels all at once. High-priority military traffic. On Chen's bridge, the tactical officer counted down. 30 seconds, Captain. Weapons ready to fire. The Kreeth commander's face showed something humans had never seen before. Fear. Real fear. You are insane. Your entire species is insane. Yes, Chen agreed. We are the species that survived 1,000 wars with ourselves. We are very good at destruction. 20 seconds. Wait! The Kreeth commander raised his clawed hands. We are transmitting stand-down orders to the planet killer. Too slow, Chen said coldly. You should have ordered them to stand down immediately. Now you pay the price for hesitation. Fire on the Kreeth military staging area. Show them we mean what we say. Her weapons officer hesitated for just a second. Chen understood. What she was ordering would kill millions, but it would save billions. That is an order, she said quietly. The human ships fired. Not at the Kreeth homeworld, but at their largest military installation in the system. It was a massive space station where the Kreeth assembled their fleets and trained their soldiers. It held 3 million Kreeth military personnel. The weapons struck with devastating precision. Kinetic rounds traveling at near light speed, antimatter warheads, energy beams that could cut through anything. The space station broke apart in seconds, its pieces falling toward the planet below like burning rain. At Thraxis Prime, the planet killer stopped its attack entirely. New orders came through from Creeth Command. Retreat, stand down, return to home territory immediately. They are withdrawing, Sorath shouted in disbelief. The planet killer is retreating. Across the assembly network, people watched in shock as the Creeth superweapon turned and fled. The impossible had happened. The Creeth had been forced to back down. On Chen's bridge, her crew sat in silence. They had just killed 3 million beings. The weight of that settled over them like a physical thing. Some crew members were crying. Others just stared at their screens. Chen activated communications to all human ships. I know what we just did. I know the cost. Remember this moment. Remember what it feels like. We are not monsters who kill without conscience. We are people who do monstrous things when necessary. That is our curse and our strength. General Reeves's face appeared on screen. He looked like he had aged 10 years. Captain Chen, the Creeth are requesting peace negotiations. They want to discuss terms. No terms, Chen said. Her voice was hard as steel. Total surrender or we continue. They tried to commit genocide. They do not get to negotiate. Over the next week, the Creeth Empire collapsed. Their military had been built on terrorizing peaceful species. When they met an enemy that was willing to be more ruthless than they were, they broke. Colony after colony surrendered. Entire fleets stood down. The war ended not with negotiation but with submission. The Creeth accepted assembly occupation of their worlds and strict limits on their military. They had no choice. The humans had demonstrated what would happen if they resisted. 2 months after the war ended, a memorial was built on Thraxis Prime. It honored all who died in the war. Assembly civilians, human soldiers, even Creeth, who had been killed in the conflict. The memorial's message was simple. Remember the cost of peace. At the dedication ceremony, Teleth gave a speech to the gathered assembly members and human representatives. He stood before the memorial, his blue skin looking pale in the afternoon light. When we detected humanity's radio signals, we thought we were going to welcome another peaceful species to our community. He began. We expected explorers and dreamers, scientists and artists, people like us. He paused, looking at the human soldiers standing at attention nearby. No aliens came. Only the ruthless survivors of 1,000 wars arrived. They were not the heroes we wanted. They did not fit our ideals of what civilized beings should be. They were scarred and violent and capable of terrible things. Captain Chen stood among the human representatives, her expression unreadable. But they were the heroes we needed, Teleth continued, his voice growing stronger. When we faced an enemy we could not defeat, when billions were about to die, humans did what we could not. They made the hard choices. They carried the burden of violence, so we would not have to. They saved us. He looked directly at Chen now. You asked me once if there was another way. I have thought about that question every day. The truth is, I do not know. Perhaps in a perfect universe, there would be. But we do not live in a perfect universe. We live in one where sometimes the only way to stop evil is to be willing to do worse things than the evil you are fighting. The ceremony continued with speeches from various leaders. General Reeves announced the creation of the Joint Defense Academy, where assembly species would learn human military tactics. Many assembly members looked uncomfortable with this, but they could not deny the necessity. After the ceremony, Chen found Teleth standing alone by the memorial. You did well, she said. That speech took courage. I told the truth, Teleth replied, though many do not want to hear it. There are members of the assembly who think we should limit human military presence. They fear you more than they fear another Creeth invasion. Chen nodded slowly. They are right to fear us. We are dangerous. We know how to destroy things very efficiently. Will you always be this way? Teleth asked quietly. Will humanity always choose violence? I hope not, Chen said honestly. I dream of a day when humans can be explorers instead of soldiers, when we can create instead of destroy. But until that day comes, we will be what we need to be. Protectors, defenders, warriors, whatever it takes to keep people safe. They stood in silence for a while, looking at the memorial. Finally, Teleth spoke again. A new species made first contact with the assembly yesterday. They are young, just beginning to explore space. They are sending a delegation to meet us. Will you warn them about us? Chen asked. Yes, Teleth said. I will tell them about Earth, about the species that fought itself for thousands of years and somehow survived, about the warriors who came when we needed them most. Chen turned to leave, then stopped. What will you tell them about humanity's future? Will we always be the violent ones? Teleth thought carefully before answering. I will tell them that humanity taught the galaxy an important lesson. Peace is precious, but only those willing to defend it can keep it. You cannot reason with Enem. The sky above Kalros burned red. Elder Suresh stood at the observation window of the council hall, his pale blue hands pressed against the glass. Outside, streaks of fire cut through the atmosphere as Crethian warships launched another bombardment. Each impact sent tremors through the ground, rattling the ancient stone walls that had stood for 300 years. The Eastern District is gone, reported Councillor Mirana, her voice barely above a whisper. 10,000 souls just gone! Suresh closed his eyes. The Varani were a peaceful people. They grew food, created art, wrote poetry that celebrated the beauty of life. They had no warships, no armies, no weapons beyond what they needed to hunt the occasional predator that wandered from the forests. When the Crethian Dominion had arrived 3 weeks ago, they had offered everything they had. It wasn't enough. The Crethians wanted the planet itself. They wanted the Varani gone. Any response from the coalition? Suresh asked, though he already knew the answer. Mirana shook her head. They sent another message. They're considering the matter. They say Kalros is not a strategic priority. They suggest we negotiate terms of surrender. Surrender. Suresh laughed, but there was no humor in it. The Crethians don't want surrender. They want extinction. Another explosion lit the sky. The observation window cracked down the middle. We need to evacuate the council hall, Mirana said. The shelters beneath the city are no. Suresh turned to face the assembled councillors. 12 Varani, the wisest of their people now reduced to helpless witnesses of their civilization's end.
I will not die cowering in the dark.
If these are our final hours, I will spend them trying to save our people. In the communications center below the council hall, young Tillis worked frantically at the relay station. Her fingers danced across the controls, sending the same message again and again into the void. She was barely 20 cycles old, too young to remember the old wars, too young to understand why the galaxy had grown so cold and bureaucratic. Please, she whispered into the microphone, broadcasting on every frequency she could access. This is Kalros. We are under attack. The Crethian Dominion is destroying our world. Anyone who can hear this, please help us. We have children here. We have elders who cannot fight. Please, silence answered her. Always silence, Tillis wanted to scream. She wanted to rage at the stars themselves. The Galactic Coalition had promised protection to all member worlds. But when the Crethians came with their massive fleets and their hunger for conquest, the Coalition had hidden behind committee meetings and procedural delays. An impact shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights flickered. Tillis. Her supervisor, an older Varani named Court, grabbed her shoulder. We need to go. The defense coordinator says the Crethians are landing ground forces. They'll be here within the hour. Just one more transmission, Tillis pleaded. Please, someone has to hear us. Court's face softened. Child, we've been broadcasting for 3 weeks. No one is coming. But Tillis couldn't accept that. She pulled up the communication archives, scrolling through old first contact records. There had to be someone somewhere who would help. Her eyes caught on a file marked with a red warning symbol. Quarantined species. No contact authorized. She opened it. The file showed a species called humans. They came from a world called Earth, a blue and green planet in a distant arm of the galaxy. The records said they had made contact with the Coalition 50 years ago. The records also said they had been isolated, cut off from the rest of the galaxy by Coalition decree. Tillis read further. The humans had intervened in a conflict between two other species, violating coalition non-interference protocols. They had been deemed dangerously interventionist and prone to emotional decision-making that disrupts established order. The coalition had quarantined their entire sector. Dangerously interventionist. Tillis felt something stir in her chest. Hope, perhaps, or desperation. She found the old beacon frequency, the one the humans had used for first contact. It was ancient, probably inactive, but she had to try. Her fingers moved across the controls, adjusting the relay to reach across the vast distance to human space. She took a breath and spoke. This is Tillis of Calros. I don't know if anyone can hear this. I don't know if you remember us or if you even care about what happens out here. But we're dying. The Crithian Dominion is killing us and the Coalition won't help. They say we're not important enough. They say it's not their problem. Her voice broke. Please, if there's anyone out there who still believes in helping people just because it's right, we need you. Anyone. Please. We're dying here. She ended the transmission and sat back, tears streaming down her face. Court stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. Come on, he said gently. We need to get to the shelters. Above them, the Crithian warships began their final approach. Admiral Veshkar of the Dominion stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Talon of Dominion watching the pathetic planet below. The Varani had tried to resist with mining equipment and agricultural machinery. It would have been amusing if it wasn't so tedious. Prepare the drop pods, he ordered. I want ground forces securing the capital within 2 hours. Execute any Varani who resist, enslave the rest. Yes, Admiral, his second-in-command replied. Veshkar smiled, his scaled lips pulling back to reveal sharp teeth. Another world would fall to the Dominion. Another species would learn that mercy was a weakness the universe could not afford. In the shelter beneath the city, 2,000 Varani huddled in the darkness. Tillis sat with her back against the cold stone wall, listening to the sounds of impact above. Parents held their children. Elders whispered prayers to gods who seemed to have abandoned them. Tillis pulled out her personal communicator and checked the display one last time. No response. Of course, no response. She had sent a message to a species the galaxy had forgotten, a species locked away behind barriers of law and politics. She was about to turn it off when it beeped. Tillis stared at the screen, her heart suddenly pounding. Text scrolled across the display in broken Varani, clearly run through a translation program that didn't quite work. Message received. Position hold. Earth remembers. Tillis read it again, and again. Her hands shook. Court, she called out. Court, look at this. The older Varani came over, squinting at the screen. His eyes widened. Is this real? He whispered. I don't know, Tillis said. But someone answered. Someone out there heard us. Above them, the ground shook as Crithian drop pods began slamming into the surface. The invasion had begun. But in the darkness of the shelter, Tillis held onto her communicator and whispered a prayer of her own. Not to absent gods, but to strangers across the stars who had promised to remember. Outside, the sky burned. Inside, hope flickered like a candle in the wind. The Varani of Calros prepared to make their last stand, not knowing that halfway across the galaxy, engines were powering up, weapons were being loaded, and an entire species that the universe had tried to forget was preparing to remind everyone why they had been feared in the first place. The humans were coming. Lieutenant Sarah Chen sat at her monitoring station on Luna Station, running through the routine sweep of deep space frequencies. It was boring work, the kind that made her eyes glaze over after the first hour. Earth had been isolated for 50 years. Nobody called. Nobody visited. The galaxy had moved on without them. Then her console lit up with an incoming transmission from outside the quarantine zone. Sarah jerked upright, her coffee nearly spilling across the controls. In her 5 years at the station, she had never seen an incoming message from beyond the barrier. The Coalition had made it very clear. Earth was to remain isolated until they deemed humanity ready to rejoin galactic society. No timeline given. No criteria explained. She routed the message through the translation matrix and listened. The voice was feminine, young, and absolutely terrified. Sarah listened to the broken plea, the desperate cry for help, and felt something twist in her chest. When the message ended, she sat in silence for a moment, then reached for the emergency comm line. "This is Monitoring Station 7. I need to speak with Admiral Martinez. Priority Alpha. Tell her it's about the quarantine." 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the briefing room of the Terran Defense Fleet headquarters, surrounded by the highest-ranking military officers on Earth. Admiral Chen Martinez sat at the head of the table, her gray-streaked hair pulled back in a tight bun, her dark eyes sharp and focused. "Play it again," Martinez said. Sarah played the message for the third time. The room remained silent as Tillis's voice filled the space, begging for help that the galaxy refused to give. "Where is Calros?" asked General Morrison, head of the Marine Corps. "Frontier world, about 40 light-years from Coalition space," replied Commander Stevens, the intelligence officer. He pulled up a star map on the main display. "Small colony, maybe 3 million inhabitants. Species is Varani, non-aggressive, non-military. The Crithian Dominion has been expanding in that sector for the past decade." "And the Coalition?" Martinez asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. "Hasn't responded. Calros is technically a member world, but it's not strategic. No major resources, no military value, far from trade routes." Stevens paused. "The Coalition considers it acceptable losses." Martinez's jaw tightened. "Acceptable losses? 3 million people." "Ma'am," said Captain Rodriguez, the legal officer, "we're under quarantine. Coalition law specifically prohibits any human military action outside our designated zone. If we respond to this, we'll be in violation of—" "I know what we'll be in violation of, Captain," Martinez interrupted. She stood and walked to the star map, staring at the distant point of light that represented Calros. "We all know why we're in this quarantine." The room grew heavy with memory. Everyone there had lived through it. 50 years ago, Earth had made first contact with the Galactic Coalition. Humanity had been thrilled, eager to join the community of spacefaring species. But the honeymoon had ended quickly. A Coalition member species called the Tarathi had invaded a smaller species called the Brentii, claiming historical rights to their territory. The Coalition had debated the matter for months, forming committees, scheduling hearings, doing everything except actually helping. Meanwhile, the Brentii had died by the thousands. Earth had watched for as long as it could stand. Then humanity had acted. The Terran fleet had jumped into Brentii space without authorization and driven the Tarathi back. Earth had saved the Brentii from extinction. The Coalition had responded by declaring humanity dangerous, reckless, and unsuitable for galactic society. The quarantine had gone into effect within a month. Martinez had been a young captain then, commanding a destroyer in the intervention fleet. She had lost her daughter in the fighting, a Marine killed during a boarding action. Earth had been told that the sacrifice meant nothing, that humanity had committed a crime by interfering. For 50 years, Earth had followed the rules. The quarantine had held. Humanity had turned inward, building defenses, perfecting weapons, preparing for threats that never came. Until now. "I want opinions," Martinez said, turning back to the table. "And I want them honest." General Morrison spoke first. "From a tactical standpoint, we can do it. The Third Fleet is ready. We've spent 50 years with nothing to do but train and prepare. We're better now than we were during the Brentii intervention. Legal perspective?" Martinez looked at Rodriguez. "We'll be violating the quarantine, breaking Coalition law, and potentially starting a diplomatic incident that could lead to sanctions or even military action against Earth," Rodriguez said. "But," he paused. "Ma'am, I didn't join the military to follow laws that let people die," Commander Stevens added. "Intelligence suggests the Coalition won't intervene militarily. They're too divided, too bureaucratic. They'll protest, threaten, maybe impose economic restrictions. But attack Earth itself? Unlikely." Martinez looked around the table. "Anyone think we should stay here and do nothing?" "Silence, Lieutenant Chen," Martinez said, looking at Sarah. "You received that message. What do you think?" Sarah straightened. "I think someone reached across 50 years of silence and 40 light-years of space to ask for help. And I think we're the only ones who will give it." Martinez nodded slowly. She walked back to her chair and placed her hands on the table. "I'm calling for an emergency session of the Unified Earth Government. We're going to put this to a vote. If they authorize it, the Third Fleet deploys immediately." The session lasted 4 hours. Representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in the council chamber in Geneva. They watched the message from Tillis. They reviewed the intelligence reports. They debated the consequences, When the vote came, it was unanimous. Earth would respond. The orders went out at 300 hours. Across human space, military bases lit up with activity. The Third Fleet began mobilization procedures. Marines loaded equipment. Engineers prepped jump drives. Weapons officers armed missiles and railguns. Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the TDF Indomitable, the flagship of the Third Fleet. The dreadnought stretched almost 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that had never been fired in anger. Around her, 40 other warships prepared for departure. All ships report ready. Admiral, her executive officer announced. Martinez looked at the view screen, showing the stars beyond Earth's system. Somewhere out there, people were dying. People who had asked for help and received none from those who should have protected them. She thought of her daughter, Maria, who had died believing that saving people was always worth the cost. She thought of the Brenti, a species that still existed because humanity had refused to stand by. She thought of all the reasons the galaxy had locked Earth away. "Send a message to all ships," Martinez said. "Tell them what we're about to do. Tell them that the Coalition will call us criminals for this. Tell them that Earth will face consequences. Then tell them that some things matter more than consequences. Some things matter more than laws." The message went out. Not a single ship requested permission to withdraw. "Helm," Martinez ordered. "Set course for Calros. All ships prepare for jump." The Third Fleet aligned in formation, a beautiful and terrible array of human military power. 50 years of isolation. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of waiting for a moment like this. "Jump drives charging," the navigator announced. 30 seconds. Martinez stared at the stars and made a silent promise to a young Varani woman she had never met. "We heard you. We're coming." 10 seconds. The Indomitable's drives hummed with power. Reality began to bend around the fleet. Jump in 3, 2, 1. Space tore open and the human fleet vanished. The galaxy was about to remember why it had been afraid. Admiral Veshkar of the Crithian Dominion stood on the command deck of the Talon of Dominion and watched his victory unfold. Below, on the surface of Calros, his ground forces had secured the capital. The Varani resistance had crumbled in less than 6 hours. As expected. "Status report," he commanded, his scaled hand gripping the railing. "All primary targets secured, Admiral," his second officer replied. "Casualties are minimal. The Varani are surrendering in large numbers." "And the council hall?" "Surrounded. The Varani leadership is trapped inside. They refuse to surrender." Veshkar's mouth twisted in what passed for a smile among his species. "Then we shall make an example of them. Prepare orbital bombardment. Target the council hall. I want every species in this sector to see what happens to those who defy the Dominion." "Yes, Admiral." Veshkar turned back to the viewport satisfied. This conquest had been almost too easy. The Coalition had sent their usual protests, their usual demands for peaceful resolution. But they had sent no ships. They never did. The Coalition was weak, soft, more interested in procedure than protection. The Dominion was strong. The Dominion took what it wanted. "Admiral," the sensor officer's voice was sharp with alarm. "We're detecting gravitational anomalies at the system edge." "Anomalies?" Veshkar walked to the sensor station. "Explain." "Multiple contacts emerging from faster-than-light travel. Large signatures, very large." "I'm reading." The officer's voice trailed off. "Admiral, I'm reading 43 separate contacts. Capital ship class or larger." Veshkar felt his blood run cold. 43 capital ships? That was impossible. The nearest Coalition fleet was weeks away. "Identify them." "Working on it, sir. The signatures don't match any known Coalition vessel type. They're much larger than standard Coalition vessels." On the planet's surface, Tillis huddled in the shelter with the other survivors. The sounds of fighting had stopped an hour ago. That meant either the human rescue force had been destroyed before arriving, or the Crithians had won. She feared she knew which. Her communicator had been silent since that single message. "Earth remembers." Maybe it had been a mistake. Maybe it had been a cruel joke. Maybe. The communicator beeped. Tillis grabbed it, her hands shaking. Text scrolled across the screen. Clearer this time. The translation better. "Calros, this is the Terran Defense Fleet. We have arrived at your system. Stay in shelter. Help is coming. Tilla stared at the words. Then she started laughing and crying at the same time. Court grabbed her shoulders. What? What is it? They came, Tillis whispered. The humans came. Above the planet, Admiral Veshkar watched his view screen with growing disbelief. The unknown contacts had resolved into actual ships, and they were massive. Each vessel was at least half again as large as his flagship. Their hulls dark and angular, covered in what looked like weapon emplacements. Analysis? He demanded. The ships are heavily armed, Admiral. I'm detecting multiple railgun batteries, missile tubes, energy weapon systems, and defensive arrays I can't even classify. These are military vessels, purpose-built for war. But whose? The communications officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only. Play it. A woman's voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect galactic standard with a slight accent Veshkar couldn't place. Attention Crithian vessels. This is Admiral Chen Martinez of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are in violation of sentient rights protocols established by the Galactic Coalition. You have committed acts of aggression against a protected member world. Withdraw your forces immediately or be removed by force. Veshkar's confusion turned to anger. Terran? Human? The quarantined species? The primitives the Coalition had locked away for being too violent? This is Admiral Veshkar of the Crithian Dominion, he replied. You have no authority here, human. Your species is under quarantine. Return to your designated space immediately or face consequences. There was a pause. Then Martinez spoke again, and this time her voice was cold as vacuum. Admiral, the only ones facing consequences here are you and your fleet. You have 1 minute to begin withdrawal. After that, I will consider your forces hostile and act accordingly. Veshkar laughed. You dare threaten the Dominion? We have 70 warships in this system. You have barely 40. You are outnumbered and outmatched. 50 seconds, Martinez replied calmly. This is your last warning, human. Leave now or 30 seconds. Veshkar slammed his fist on the console. Battle stations. All ships. Combat formation. Target those human vessels and prepare to fire on my command. The Crithian fleet, 70 strong, turned to face the human formation. They spread out, their superior numbers allowing them to attempt an encirclement. Veshkar watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The humans were fools. They had jumped into a situation they couldn't win. 10 seconds, Martinez's voice said. 9, 8, 7. Lock weapons, Veshkar ordered. 6, 5, 4. Fire when ready, Admiral? His weapons officer asked. 3, 2, 1. Fire. Nothing happened. The Crithian ships had barely begun their targeting sequences when the human fleet moved. They didn't move like any military force Veshkar had ever seen. They moved like a single organism, like a school of fish or a flock of birds, each vessel perfectly synchronized with the others. The human dreadnoughts opened fire. Veshkar had seen many battles. He had commanded fleets in a dozen campaigns. He had witnessed the destruction of planets and the annihilation of armadas. But he had never seen anything like this. The human railguns fired projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Crithian shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and slow missiles, proved utterly useless against solid metal moving at such velocity. The first salvo tore through 3 Crithian cruisers, punching holes clean through their hulls. Then the missiles came. Human missiles didn't just explode. They were smart, adaptive, capable of evading point defense and choosing their own targets. They swarmed like insects, dozens converging on single ships, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. Return fire, Veshkar screamed. All ships, return fire. The Crithian fleet responded, but the humans were already moving again. Their ships twisted and turned with an agility that should have been impossible for vessels their size. They had clearly spent their 50 years of isolation perfecting the art of space combat. A human destroyer broke formation and accelerated toward a cluster of Crithian frigates. The frigates focused their fire on it, confident in their numerical advantage. The destroyer's point defense systems activated, creating what looked like A solid wall of laser fire that shredded every incoming missile and projectile. Then the destroyer fired its main cannon directly into the center of the Crithian formation. The explosion took out 4 ships simultaneously. "We need reinforcements," Veshikar's second officer shouted over the chaos. "We can't—" The Talon of Dominion shuddered as something massive slammed into its shields. The human flagship, the Indomitable, had targeted them specifically. It fired again and the shields collapsed entirely. Martinez's voice came through the comm. "This is your last chance, Admiral. Surrender now and I'll accept it. Keep fighting and I'll blow your ship apart." Veshkar looked at the tactical display. In less than 3 minutes, the humans had destroyed 18 Crithian vessels. 18. His fleet was in disarray, his ships fleeing in panic or dying in fire. The humans hadn't just won the battle. They had made it look easy. "All ships," Veshkar said, his voice hollow. "Cease fire. Begin withdrawal." On the surface of Kalros, Tillis stood at the entrance to the shelter, watching the sky. She could see the flashes of combat in orbit, like lightning in the clouds. Then she saw them descending. Human dropships, dozens of them, their hulls marked with symbols she couldn't read. They landed in the city square, their ramps lowering. Soldiers emerged, tall beings in powered armor, carrying weapons that looked like they could level buildings. Tillis felt a moment of fear. These were the creatures the galaxy had deemed too dangerous to be free. Then one of the soldiers approached her. The armor hissed as the helmet detached and lifted away, revealing a human face. A woman, dark-skinned, with kind eyes that seemed impossibly warm for a warrior. "Are you Tillis?" the woman asked in careful Varani. Tillis nodded, unable to speak. The human woman smiled and extended her hand. "I'm Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, Terran Marines. Sorry we're late. Let's get you and your people somewhere safe." Tillis took the offered hand and finally, she allowed herself to believe. They had come. Against all odds, across all distance, breaking all laws, the humans had come. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Humans had broken quarantine. The isolated species, the ones deemed too dangerous and violent for civilized space, had jumped 40 light-years to defend a world the Coalition had abandoned. They had destroyed a Crithian fleet in minutes. They had saved Kalros. In the council chambers on Centralis Prime, the heart of the Galactic Coalition, an emergency session convened. 200 species, each represented by their appointed counselors, gathered to discuss what everyone was calling the human problem. Counselor Thren of the Valorian Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically. "This is an outrage. A quarantined species has violated Coalition law, has engaged in military action without authorization, has disrupted the established order of this sector. We must respond with strength." Murmurs of agreement rippled through portions of the chamber. Ambassador Tishen of the Marathi Communion rose to respond. She was elderly, her silver skin marked with the wisdom patterns of her species. "Counselor Thren speaks of law and order. But what of justice? What of the promise we made to protect our member worlds? Kalros called for help. We sent committee meetings. The humans sent ships. The humans sent weapons." Thren shot back. "They sent violence. This is exactly why they were quarantined in the first place. They are too quick to war, too eager to interfere. They interfered in a genocide," Tishen replied quietly. "As we should have done." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species demanded immediate military action against Earth. Others, particularly those from frontier worlds, remained conspicuously silent. A few mostly smaller species openly supported the human intervention. High Counselor Zareth, leader of the council, raised his hand for silence. He was Valorian like Thren, but older, more measured in his words. "The facts are clear. Earth has violated the quarantine. They have taken military action without Coalition approval. Legally, we must respond. The question is how. Sanctions, suggested Counselor Mara of the Telvanni Collective. Economic isolation. Close all trade routes to human space. Earth is already isolated, Tishen pointed out. You cannot isolate what is already cut off. Military action, then, Thren insisted. Send a fleet to Earth, remind them that they are not above Coalition law. And if they resist? Asked Counselor Bryn of the Nethex Compact. The reports from Kalros suggest human military capability is far beyond what we estimated. They destroyed 70 Crithian vessels with minimal losses. That caused another stir. The Crithian Dominion was not a coalition member, but they were strong, aggressive, and well-armed. The fact that humans had beaten them so decisively was troubling to many. We need more information, Zareth decided. I will personally lead a delegation to Calros. We will speak with these humans, assess the situation, and determine the appropriate response. This session is adjourned. On Calros, the work of rebuilding had begun. Human engineers worked alongside Varani civilians, clearing rubble and restoring infrastructure. Marine combat engineers had set up power generators and water purification systems. Medical personnel treated the wounded in field. Hospitals that they had constructed overnight. Tillis walked through the temporary command center that the humans had established in what remained of the council hall. She watched soldiers and technicians moving with purpose, speaking in their strange language, working with an efficiency that seemed almost mechanical. She found Elder Suresh speaking with Admiral Martinez near a holographic map of the city. The Eastern District can be rebuilt, Martinez was saying. My engineers have assessed the damage. We can have temporary housing up within a week, permanent structures within a month. Suresh looked overwhelmed. Admiral, you've already done so much. You saved our world. We cannot ask you to rebuild it as well. You're not asking, Martinez replied. We're offering. My orders from Earth are clear. We stay until Calros is safe and secure. Admiral? An aide approached. We're receiving a transmission from Coalition High Command. They're sending a delegation. High Counselor Zareth himself is coming. Martinez's expression hardened. When? 3 hours. Tillis saw something in the Admiral's face, a mixture of determination and weariness. This woman had saved them, but now she would face punishment for it. Admiral Martinez, Tillis said softly. What will they do to you? To Earth? Martinez smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. Honestly? I don't know. But whatever happens, it was worth it. 3 hours later, a coalition diplomatic vessel entered orbit. Tillis stood with Suresh and the other surviving Varani counselors as the shuttle landed. High Counselor Zareth emerged, flanked by a dozen coalition security officers. He was tall, imposing, his purple robes marking his high rank. He looked at the human soldiers standing guard, at the Marine flags flying over the command center, at the very obvious military occupation of a coalition member world. Admiral Martinez, Zareth said coldly, I am High Counselor Zareth of the Galactic Coalition. You and your forces are in violation of— I know what we're in violation of, Martinez interrupted. You can deliver your formal protests after we're done here. Zareth's eyes widened. No one interrupted the High Counselor. After you're done? Admiral, you seem to misunderstand your situation. You have broken quarantine, engaged in unauthorized military action, and occupied a coalition world. I am ordering you to withdraw your forces immediately and return to Earth to face judgment. No. The single word fell like a stone. Zareth stared at Martinez in disbelief. No, he repeated. No, Martinez confirmed. I will withdraw my forces when Calros is safe, when these people have the means to defend themselves, when I'm certain they won't be left helpless again, not before. You dare refuse a direct order from the High Council? I dare, Martinez said simply. Because unlike you, Counselor, I actually came when these people called for help. Tillis had never seen a Valorian turn that particular shade of purple before. Admiral, you are making this situation worse for yourself and your species. Earth could face severe consequences for this defiance. Then Earth faces consequences, Martinez replied. We've been isolated for 50 years. We can survive longer if we have to. Can you say the same for Calros if the Crithians return? Zareth looked around at the Varani watching this exchange. He saw their faces, saw their hope, saw their clear trust in these human warriors. He saw what his council had failed to provide. Elder Suresh, Zareth said, turning to the Varani leader. On behalf of the coalition, I must apologize for our delayed response to your crisis. We should have acted sooner. Yes, Suresh said simply. You should have. But they did. Before Zareth could respond, alarms began blaring across the human command center. A Marine officer ran up to Martinez. Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up a massive incoming force. Crithian signatures. Hundreds of ships. They're coming back for revenge. Martinez's face went grim. She looked at her tactical officer. How long? 6 hours until they reach engagement range. Can we win? The officer hesitated. Our fleet took damage in the first battle. We're outnumbered at least 3-1. It will be close, Martinez nodded. She turned to her staff. Recall all personnel to ships. Prepare for combat. Get every civilian into the deepest shelter we can find. She looked at Zareth. Counselor, I suggest you leave. This is going to get messy. Zareth stared at her. You're going to fight them? Of course I'm going to fight them. What did you expect? Admiral, you can't win this battle. The smart move would be to withdraw, preserve your forces. Martinez laughed, but there was no humor in it. Counselor, if we wanted to make smart moves, we never would have come here in the first place. Now either evacuate or find a shelter, because in 6 hours we're going to make the Crithians regret coming back. As Zareth's shuttle prepared to return to his ship, Tillis approached Admiral Martinez. The human woman was staring at a tactical display, her face set in hard lines. You're going to die defending us, Tillis said quietly. Maybe, Martinez admitted, but someone has to show the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Someone has to prove that strength isn't just about power, it's about what you do with that power. The Council won't help you. I know. Tillis felt tears on her face. It's not fair. You saved us, and now you'll be punished for it. Martinez placed a hand on Tillis's shoulder. Listen to me. What we did here, what we're about to do, it matters. Not because of what happens to us, but because of what it means. We're telling every species in this galaxy that you don't have to accept injustice just because the powerful tell you to. You don't have to let people die just because saving them is inconvenient. But you'll be alone, Tillis whispered. Martinez smiled. We've been alone for 50 years. We're used to it. High above Calros, Admiral Martinez returned to the bridge of the Indomitable and looked at her gathered fleet. 40 human ships damaged from the first battle, now facing 3 times their number. All ships, she broadcast. In a few hours, we're going to face the biggest fight of our lives. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and the galaxy we're trying to protect has abandoned us. But we're not doing this for the galaxy. We're doing this because there are innocent people down there who deserve to live. We're doing this because it's right. She paused, looking at the stars. Earth knows what we're doing here. They know we might not come home, and they're proud of us anyway. So let's show the Crithians and the Coalition and every other Admiral Martinez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the Crithian armada approach. 200 ships, maybe more. They had come for revenge, to punish the humans who had embarrassed them and to finish what they started with Calros. All ships report ready, Admiral, her executive officer said. Marines refuse evacuation. They say they're staying with the Varani no matter what. Martinez smiled sadly. Of course they did. That was what Marines did. Fleet status. 40 ships operational. We took damage in the first battle, but the crews have worked miracles. We're at about 70% combat effectiveness overall. 70% against 200 ships. The math was not encouraging. Long-range sensors show the Crithian fleet will be in firing range in 10 minutes, the tactical officer reported. Martinez opened a channel to all human ships. This is Admiral Martinez. I won't lie to you. The odds are bad. We might not survive this, but down on that planet are 3 million people who deserve to live, who deserve a chance at a future. We're the only thing standing between them and extinction. If we have to die to give them that chance, then we die. But we make every shot count. We make them pay for every meter. We show them that humans don't back down. We don't give up, and we sure as hell don't abandon people who need us. She paused, her voice softening. It's been an honor serving with all of you. Let's remind the galaxy why they were afraid of us. Martinez out. The Crithian fleet entered weapons range. All ships weapons free, Martinez ordered. Let them come. Then something impossible happened. Admiral. The sensor officer's voice cracked with shock. New contacts. Multiple new contacts emerging from FTL. Martinez spun to the display. Ships were appearing across the system, dozens of them. Her heart sank. More Crithians. Had they brought even more forces? But the identification codes weren't Crithian. I'm reading, Admiral, those are Coalition member species. I'm seeing Marathi ships, Nethex vessels, Brentai cruisers. Ma'am, there are ships here from 20 different species. Martinez stared at the screen in disbelief. Coalition ships. But why, how? A transmission came through. The voice was Tishen, the Marathi ambassador. Admiral Martinez, this is Ambassador Tishen commanding the Marathi Expeditionary Force. We heard what you were doing here. We heard that the Council ordered you to leave. We heard that you refused, Martinez found her voice. Ambassador, what are you doing here? What you did, Admiral. What we should have done 50 years ago. What the Coalition should have done 3 weeks ago. The frontier worlds have been watching. We're tired of watching people die while the Council debates. So we came. Without authorization. Without approval. Just like you. More transmissions flooded in. A Nethex captain. The Nethex compact stands with Earth. Let the Council sort it out later. A Brenti commander. The Brenti have not forgotten who saved us. We will not abandon those who never abandoned us. Ship after ship, species after species, all pledging to stand with humanity against the Crithian invasion. Tears blurred Martinez's vision. 50 years. 50 years of isolation, of being told humanity was too dangerous, too violent, too quick to interfere. And now, when humanity stood on the edge of annihilation for doing what was right, the galaxy had finally listened, not the Council. Not the politicians, but the people who understood that some things mattered more than laws. All ships, Martinez said, her voice strong again, form up with our new allies. Today we fight together. The combined fleet numbered nearly 90 ships. Still outnumbered, but now it was a fight they could win. The Crithian commander, Admiral HFY, brother to the disgraced Veshkar, saw his certain victory dissolving before his eyes. He had come expecting to crush a damaged human fleet. Instead, he faced a coalition of species that had somehow united overnight. All ships, he growled. Attack formation. Show these fools what happens when they oppose the Dominion. The Battle of Kalros began in earnest. Human ships and their newfound allies spread across the system in a defensive screen. The Crithians, overconfident in their numbers, charged straight in. It was a mistake. The humans had spent 6 hours preparing, setting up firing solutions, coordinating with their allies. When the Crithians entered optimal range, the combined fleet opened fire with devastating precision. Human railguns tore through Crithian shields. Marathi energy weapons, known for their accuracy, picked off smaller vessels. Nethex missile cruisers launched waves of smart munitions. Brenti defenders, fighting with the fury of a species that remembered oppression, threw themselves at Crithian flanks. The battle was chaos, beautiful and terrible. Ships exploded in blooms of fire. Weapons fire crisscrossed the void. Marines ejected from dying ships were picked up by allies, regardless of species. The Indomitable faced down 3 Crithian battleships simultaneously. Martinez's crew moved like a machine, firing, maneuvering, adapting. One battleship died, then another. The third broke off, retreating. Admiral, the communications officer was nearly shouting. I'm getting reports from across the fleet. More ships are arriving. Coalition ships. Official coalition ships. Martinez looked at the tactical display. Sure enough, a new formation had appeared bearing official coalition military codes. A voice came through, old but firm. High Counselor Zareth. All Crithian vessels, this is the Galactic Coalition fleet. You are in violation of coalition space and engaged in illegal military action. Cease hostilities immediately or face coalition military response. The Crithian fleet, already battered by the combined defensive force, found itself facing fresh coalition warships. Their formation broke. Ships began fleeing, jumping to FTL in disorder. Admiral HFY, seeing his fleet dissolving around him, made one last desperate decision. If he couldn't have victory, he would have revenge. He aimed his flagship directly at Kalros and activated his bombardment weapons. Target is the planet, Martinez's tactical officer shouted. He's going for a direct strike on the surface. The Indomitable was too far away. The coalition ships couldn't intercept in time. Martinez watched in horror as the Crithian flagship prepared to fire. Then something beautiful happened. Virani orbital defense platforms, rebuilt over the past weeks with human technology and training, came online. 20 platforms, their weapons charged, locked onto the Crithian flagship. The Virani had learned. They could defend themselves now. 20 beams of concentrated energy struck the Crithian ship simultaneously. Its shields failed instantly. The hull breached in a dozen places. The ship died before it could fire a single shot at the planet below. The remaining Crithian vessels jumped to FTL, fleeing the system. The Battle of Kalros was over. On the surface in the rebuilt council hall, Tillis watched the orbital display with tears streaming down her face. They had done it. They had survived. Not just because the humans had saved them, but because the humans had taught them to save themselves. 3 days later, the Coalition Council convened again on Centralis Prime. This time, the atmosphere was different. High Counselor Zareth stood before the assembled species, and his voice carried across the chamber. The events at Calros have forced us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our institution. Zareth began. We failed. We failed the Varani when they called for help. We failed the Brenti 50 years ago. We have failed time and again to live up to the ideals we claim to represent. He paused, looking across the gathered counselors. Humanity acted when we would not. They broke our laws to uphold our principles, and because of them, 3 million Varani live today who would otherwise be dead. They showed us what we should have been all along. Counselor Thren rose to object, but Zareth raised a hand. No more committees. No more debates while people die. I am proposing immediate legislation, the Calros Compact. Any coalition member species will have the right to respond to threats against sentient life, regardless of political considerations. Any species that calls for help will receive it, without delay, without bureaucracy. The chamber erupted in discussion. Tishan stood. And what of Earth's quarantine? Zareth looked directly at her. The quarantine is lifted, effective immediately. Earth will be offered full membership in the Galactic Coalition, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. They have proven themselves worthy 100 times over. The vote took 2 hours. When it ended, the Calros Compact had passed by a significant majority. Earth's quarantine was lifted unanimously. 6 months later, on Calros, a monument was unveiled in the center of the rebuilt capital city. It showed a human soldier and a Varani civilian reaching upward together, their hands touching the stars. The inscription, written in every major galactic language, read, "They came when no one else would. May we never forget what courage looks like." Tillis stood at the monument with Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, the Marine who had been first to extend a hand in friendship. They had become close friends over the months, sharing stories, learning each other's languages and cultures. "Your fleet is leaving today," Tillis said quietly. Maria nodded. "Admiral's orders. Now that you have your own defense force trained and ready, she says it's time for us to go home. Will you come back?" Maria smiled. "Of course. That's what freeing,